There comes a point in your life when holding on hurts more than walking away. You have explained yourself enough. You have waited long enough. You have given chances, lowered your expectations, ignored the signs, and convinced yourself that maybe things would eventually change. But some people only recognize your value when they can no longer reach you. Some doors are not meant to be forced open. Some relationships are not meant to be repaired forever. And some chapters will destroy you if you keep rereading them simply because you are afraid to turn the page. This book is about learning one of the hardest forms of strength, walking away from what no longer chooses you. Not because you hate them, not because you want revenge, not because you want them to suffer, but because you finally understand that your life cannot remain trapped around people, places, memories, and expectations that have already let you go. Detachment is not becoming cold, it is becoming clear. It is realizing that you can love someone and still leave them. You can forgive someone and never give them access to you again. You can miss someone without returning to what broke you, and you can walk away without needing them to understand why. Stop begging people to see your worth. Stop chasing explanations from people who are comfortable confusing you. Stop proving your loyalty to people who repeatedly make you question theirs. Sometimes the most powerful message you will ever send is your absence. No argument, no dramatic goodbye, no final attempt to make them understand. You simply stop chasing. You stop forcing, you stop returning, and you allow them to experience life without the version of you they took for granted. Let them lose you. And this time, when you walk away, do not keep turning around to see whether they noticed. Keep walking, because what is ahead of you may require you to finally release what keeps pulling you backward. This is where detachment begins. Chapter 1. The moment you stop chasing. There comes a moment when you finally understand that chasing people is exhausting because you are trying to force something that should never need to be forced. You keep sending the message. You keep checking if they replied. You keep trying to explain yourself better. You keep giving one more chance. You keep thinking that if you become more patient, more understanding, more available, more forgiving, more useful, more attractive, more successful, or more careful, maybe they will finally see your value. But the truth is simpler. People usually see your value long before they decide how much of it they are willing to respect. And that is where detachment begins. Detachment is not pretending that you do not care. It is not becoming cold. It is not acting like nothing hurts you. It is not punishing someone with silence because you secretly hope they will panic and return. Real detachment is much quieter than that. It is the moment you stop trying to control how someone feels about you. You stop trying to convince them to choose you. You stop trying to earn a place in a life where your presence is treated like an option. You stop begging for clarity from someone whose behavior has already given you an answer. This is difficult because your mind wants closure. It wants a final conversation, a final explanation, a final apology, a final reason. You want to know what changed. You want to know why they became distant. You want to know why the energy became different. You want them to admit that they hurt you. But sometimes closure does not arrive in words. Sometimes closure is the pattern. It is the unanswered message. It is the broken promise. It is the repeated disrespect. It is the way you feel small every time you deal with them. It is the fact that you are always the one trying to repair what they keep damaging. At some point, you have to stop treating confusion like a mystery. If someone repeatedly makes you question where you stand is probably not where you want to be. That does not mean they are evil. That does not mean you are superior. It simply means the connection is no longer healthy enough for you to keep investing in it. And this is where many people fail. They wait for the other person to officially end it. They wait for permission to walk away. They wait for one final act of disrespect that is dramatic enough to justify leaving. But self-respect does not require a courtroom. You do not need a perfect case. You do not need witnesses. You do not need everyone to agree that you were treated badly enough. If something consistently drains your dignity, your energy, your clarity, or your emotional stability, that is enough information to pay attention. Walking away is not always about anger. Sometimes it is about accepting that you cannot keep giving your best to something that keeps giving you less. And the hardest part is this: when you stop chasing, there may be silence. The person may not run after you. They may not suddenly realize what they lost. They may not send the message you imagined. They may continue with their life. You have to be strong enough to detach, even when nobody notices. Because if your only reason for walking away is to make them chase you, you have not detached. You have simply changed strategies. You are still controlled by their reaction. Real freedom begins when their reaction is no longer the goal. You do not leave so they miss you. You leave because you miss yourself. You miss the version of you who did not constantly overthink messages. You miss the version of you who did not measure your worth by someone else's attention. You miss the version of you who could wake up without immediately wondering what another person was thinking. You miss your focus, your confidence, your energy, your mental calm. You miss the space inside yourself that became crowded with their mixed signals. So you stop. You stop proving. You stop persuading. You stop chasing. And you let reality speak. This is one of the most powerful things you can learn. What is meant to be mutual should not require one person to carry the entire emotional weight. A relationship can require effort. Friendship can require patience. Love can require forgiveness. But connection should not require you to constantly abandon yourself. If you have to betray your own needs to keep someone close, the price is too high. If you have to silence your feelings to avoid losing them, you are already losing yourself. If you have to keep shrinking so they remain comfortable, that connection is not protecting you. And detachment is the decision to stop negotiating against your own well-being. You may still love them. You may still remember them. You may still wish things had been different. Detachment does not erase emotion overnight. It changes what you do with emotion. You can miss someone and not message them. You can care about someone and stop rescuing them. You can forgive someone and never reopen the door. You can appreciate the good memories and still accept that the relationship is over. You can love someone and understand that love alone is not enough. That is maturity. The immature mind believes, if I care, I must stay. The mature mind understands, I can care and still leave. And once you learn that, something changes. You stop panicking every time someone pulls away. You stop treating distance like an emergency. You stop immediately assuming you must fix something. Instead, you observe. You let people show you what they want. You let them reveal how much effort they are willing to make. You let silence reveal what constant communication was hiding. You do not force closeness. You do not chase affection. You do not negotiate for basic respect. You allow people to make their choices, and then you make yours. This does not make you heartless. It makes you responsible for your own life. Every time you chase someone who is walking away, you send your nervous system a dangerous message. You tell yourself, their presence is more important than my dignity. Every time you tolerate disrespect because you fear being alone, you tell yourself, having anyone is better than having myself. Every time you beg for attention, you teach yourself that love must be earned through emotional exhaustion. These beliefs become habits, and habits become identity. That is why the first step is so important. Stop chasing, not dramatically, not to prove a point, not to make anyone jealous. Just stop. Stop reaching where there is no reaching back. Stop carrying conversations that die without you. Stop investing in people who only remember you when they need something. Stop explaining your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. Stop giving unlimited access to people who offer limited respect. You do not have to announce your departure. Sometimes the strongest exit is quiet. You simply become less available for what harms you. You redirect your energy. You return to your work. your body, your goals, your faith, your family, your health, your sleep, your future, your own mind. At first, the silence may feel empty. Then, slowly, it begins to feel clean. You realize how much noise you were carrying, how much anxiety you called love, how much inconsistency you called chemistry, how much emotional hunger you called connection, how much fear you called loyalty. And then one day, you notice that you are breathing differently. You are not waiting for a reply. You are not replaying the conversation. You are not checking whether they viewed your story. You are not searching for hidden meaning. You are simply living. That is the beginning of freedom, not when they come back, not when they apologize, not when they finally understand your value. Freedom begins when you no longer need them to. Chapter 2. Stop asking people to choose you. One of the most painful habits in life is trying to become so valuable that someone finally chooses you. You think you have to be better, more attractive, more successful, more patient, more interesting, more useful, more understanding. You tell yourself that if you improve enough, they will finally see what they have been missing. But there is a difference between improving yourself because you respect your potential and improving yourself because you are trying to win someone's approval. One is growth, the other is emotional bargaining. And emotional bargaining will keep you trapped. You begin living as if your worth is waiting for another person to confirm it. You make their attention the evidence. If they call, you feel important. If they pull away, you feel rejected. If they compliment you, you feel confident. If they ignore you, your confidence disappears. That means your self-worth is not actually yours. It is being rented from someone else. And anything rented can be taken back. This is why detachment requires a new belief. You do not need to be chosen by everyone you choose. Read that slowly. You can admire someone who does not want you. You can care about someone who cannot meet you where you are. You can feel a deep connection with someone who is still wrong for your life. You can love a person who is not capable of loving you in the way you need. Your feelings are real, but feelings are not instructions. This is where people confuse intensity with compatibility. You feel a powerful emotional pull, so you assume the connection must be important. You think about them constantly, so you assume they must be meant for you. You miss them, so you assume you should return. But sometimes you think about someone because the situation is unresolved, not because it is healthy. Sometimes you miss the hope. Sometimes you miss who you were when you believed it would work. Sometimes you are attached to the future you imagined, not the reality you experienced. And that is why you must stop asking, how do I make them choose me? Ask a better question. Why am I trying so hard to be chosen by someone who keeps showing me uncertainty? That question changes everything, because now the focus moves from them to you. Why does their approval matter so much? What does their rejection awaken inside you? What old wound are you trying to heal by winning this person? What part of you believes being chosen will prove that you are enough? These are uncomfortable questions, but they lead somewhere useful. Many people are not chasing a person. They are chasing what that person's approval would mean. Maybe you were ignored growing up. Maybe affection felt conditional. Maybe you learned that you had to perform to be loved. Maybe praise was rare. Maybe rejection made you feel invisible. So now, when someone is inconsistent, something familiar wakes up. You think, if I can make this person choose me, I will finally feel worthy. But that is a trap, because no person can permanently repair a wound that your own identity keeps reopening. Even if they choose you, the fear does not disappear. Now you worry they will stop choosing you. You become hyper-aware. You analyze tone. You track changes. You look for signs. You become afraid of losing what you worked so hard to earn. The problem was never only the person. The problem was the belief that being chosen by them would make you whole. That belief must die. You are not a candidate in someone else's emotional interview. You are not here to audition for love. You are not here to convince people that your presence is valuable. The right people do not need a marketing campaign. They do not need to be pressured into consistency. They do not need to lose you 10 times before they learn how to treat you once. You should never have to create fear in someone to earn respect. If the only time they value you is when you leave, then what they value may not be you. They may value access, convenience, attention, emotional support, familiarity, control, the comfort of knowing you are available. That is not the same as valuing your heart. This is why walking away reveals so much. When you stop overgiving, people show you what the connection was built on. If they only liked you when you were useful, your boundaries will upset them. If they only liked you when you agreed with them, your honesty will upset them. If they only liked you when you were always available, your independence will upset them. If they only liked you when you accepted disrespect, your self-respect will feel like rebellion. Do not be afraid of that. Boundaries do not destroy healthy relationships. They expose unhealthy ones. And once you understand this, you stop asking people to choose you. You begin choosing your own standards. You choose relationships where communication does not feel like a guessing game. You choose friendships where effort moves in both directions. You choose environments where you do not have to constantly prove that you deserve a seat. You choose people who make your nervous system feel safe, not addicted to uncertainty. This does not mean life becomes perfect. Good relationships still have conflict. People still get busy. Misunderstandings still happen. But there is a difference between temporary difficulty and chronic emotional starvation. You know the difference. One can be repaired through honest effort. The other survives only because you keep accepting less. The moment you stop begging to be chosen, you become more selective. And being selective is not arrogance, it is clarity. You realize that access to your time should mean something. Access to your mind should mean something. Access to your vulnerability should mean something. Access to your loyalty should mean something. You do not give those things to everyone because you are afraid they will leave. You give them where they are respected. And if someone cannot choose you clearly, let them go clearly. Do not wait in emotional limbo. Do not build a life around maybes. Do not become loyal to someone's potential. Do not create a relationship in your imagination that does not exist in reality. Let people be honest through their behavior. Then be honest with yourself. You deserve relationships where you do not have to wonder whether your presence matters. But even more important, you deserve a relationship with yourself where your worth does not rise and fall according to who stays. That is what detachment gives you. It removes other people from the throne. It returns authority to you. And once you stop asking people to choose you, you finally become free to ask a much better question. Do I choose this? Chapter 3. Let silence give you the answer. People are often terrified of silence because silence removes distraction. When the messages stop, the truth gets louder. When the calls stop, you begin noticing how much of the connection depended on your effort. When you stop initiating, you discover who actually reaches for you. When you stop explaining, you discover who was listening to understand and who was only listening to respond. Silence is uncomfortable because it reveals structure. It shows you what remains when you stop holding everything together. This is why some people keep talking long after a relationship has become painful. They send one more message, they write one more paragraph, they try one more explanation. They believe the perfect words will finally create the understanding they have been waiting for. But there are situations where more communication does not create more clarity. It only creates more opportunities for you to be dismissed. You do not always need another conversation. Sometimes the conversation has already happened many times. The words changed, the promises changed, the excuses changed, but the patterns stayed the same. And patterns are often more honest than apologies. If someone says they care, but repeatedly disappears when you need them, believe the pattern. If someone says they respect you, but constantly crosses your boundaries, believe the pattern. If someone says they want a future with you, but keeps treating you like a temporary option, believe the pattern. If someone apologizes every week for the same behavior, stop treating the apology as evidence of changed. An apology without changed behavior is often just a way to reset access. Detachment requires you to become less impressed by words and more attentive to consistency. Words can create hope. Consistency creates trust. And when trust is gone, more words are not always the solution. Sometimes silence is. Not manipulative silence, not punishment. Not the kind where you stop speaking because you want the other person to panic. That is still control. Healthy silence is different. Healthy silence is when you stop participating in confusion. You stop arguing your worth. You stop defending obvious boundaries. You stop begging someone to acknowledge pain they keep repeating. You stop supplying explanations to people who already understand what they are doing. You withdraw from the cycle and then you watch. This is hard because watching feels passive. You want to do something. You want to fix it. You want to restore the old closeness. But sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is nothing. Do not interrupt the consequences of someone's behavior. Do not rush to repair the distance they created. Do not save people from the feeling of losing access to you. Let them experience the natural result of how they treated you. Again, not as revenge, as reality. If someone neglects a relationship, closeness should decrease. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, access should decrease. If someone constantly lies, trust should decrease. If someone treats your presence casually, your availability should decrease. Consequences are not cruelty, they are information. The problem is that many people keep removing consequences because they fear losing the relationship. Someone hurts them and they immediately forgive without change. Someone ignores them and they keep reaching out. Someone betrays them and they rush to prove they are still loyal. Someone takes them for granted and they increase their effort. This teaches people something dangerous. It teaches them that your boundaries have no cost. Your words may say, "Do not treat me like this," but your behavior says, "You can treat me like this and I will still stay." People learn from the behavior. This is why silence can be so powerful. Silence creates space for your actions to finally match your standards. You do not have to threaten to leave. You simply stop staying in situations that violate your values. You do not have to repeatedly demand respect. You reduce access when respect disappears. You do not have to lecture someone about your worth. You stop giving your best where it is treated as ordinary. This is the kind of silence that changes you. At first, you think you are waiting to see what they will do. Then you realize you are actually learning what you will no longer do. You will no longer chase. You will no longer over-explain. You will no longer panic when people become distant. You will no longer interpret silence as proof that you are unworthy. You will no longer abandon your routine because someone became cold. You will no longer let one person's emotional inconsistency control your entire day. That is strength. Not loud strength, quiet strength. The strength to leave a message unanswered when answering would only reopen the wound. The strength to stop checking. The strength to sit with discomfort instead of escaping into the same unhealthy pattern. The strength to accept that not every relationship will end with understanding. Some people will misunderstand your boundaries. Some people will call your distance arrogance. Some will say you changed. And maybe you did. Maybe you stopped accepting what once kept you anxious. Maybe you stopped confusing constant availability with loyalty. Maybe you stopped making yourself smaller to stay connected. That kind of change is not a problem. It is growth. Silence also teaches you something about your own mind. You begin noticing how addicted you were to stimulation. Every notification gave you a tiny emotional hit. Every reply changed your mood. Every period of silence created anxiety. Your nervous system became trained to treat communication as emotional survival. So when you detach, the first thing you feel may not be relief. It may be withdrawal. That is important to understand. Missing someone does not automatically mean you should go back. Wanting to message them does not mean reconnecting is wise. Feeling anxious in silence does not mean the relationship was healthy. Sometimes your body is simply adjusting to the absence of a pattern it became used to. Give yourself time. Let the nervous system settle. Let the mind stop expecting constant emotional stimulation. Let your attention return to the rest of your life. You will be surprised how much energy comes back when you are no longer monitoring another person's behavior. You can think again. You can sleep better. You can work without constantly checking your phone. You can make decisions without wondering how they will react. You can hear your own thoughts again. This is why silence is not empty. It is full of information. It tells you who reaches out. It tells you who respects your absence. It tells you whether the connection survives without your constant effort. And most importantly, it tells you who you become when you stop chasing. Sometimes silence will bring someone back. Sometimes it will not. Do not make either outcome the goal. The goal is clarity. If they return with real accountability, consistent effort, and respect, you can decide from a stronger place. If they do not return, the silence has given you an answer. Either way, you gain something. You gain reality, and reality, even when painful, is always more useful than illusion. Chapter 4. You do not need closure from them. Many people stay emotionally trapped because they are waiting for closure from the same person who created the confusion. They want an explanation. Why did you change? Why did you hurt me? Why did you say one thing and do another? Why did you make promises you could not keep? Why did you act like I mattered and then treat me like I was nothing? These questions feel important because the mind hates unfinished stories. When something ends without a clear explanation, your brain keeps returning to it. It searches for missing information. It replays conversations. It examines details. It tries to find the exact moment when everything changed. You think that if you understand the story, you will finally be able to move on. But sometimes the search for closure becomes the reason you cannot move on. You keep reopening the wound because you believe the answer is hidden inside it. You contact them again. You revisit old messages. You ask mutual friends. You analyze social media. You imagine conversations that never happen, all because you want one final piece of information that will make the pain disappear. But what if no explanation can make the pain disappear? What if the explanation is incomplete? What if they do not know why they behaved the way they did? What if they lie? What if they give you an answer that creates 10 more questions? What if the closure you are waiting for does not exist? This is where detachment becomes powerful. You learn to create closure through acceptance instead of explanation. You say, I may never understand everything, but I understand enough. Enough to know that it hurt. Enough to know that the pattern was unhealthy. Enough to know that I was losing myself. Enough to know that I do not want to live like that again. That is closure. Closure is not knowing every detail. Closure is deciding that the unknown details no longer control your next decision. You may never know why someone betrayed you, but you know they betrayed you. You may never know why someone suddenly became distant, but you know they stopped showing up. You may never know why someone could not value what you gave, but you know how it felt to be undervalued. You do not need a psychological report before you protect yourself. This is important because people often use the search for understanding as an excuse to maintain connection. They say, I just want one conversation, but underneath that conversation is hope. Hope that the person will apologize. Hope that they will finally understand. Hope that they will say they made a mistake. Hope that the ending will reverse itself. Be honest with yourself. Are you searching for closure, or are you searching for a reason to stay emotionally connected? That question can save you months. Sometimes closure is the courage to stop asking someone who cannot give you what you need. Maybe they lack emotional maturity. Maybe they avoid responsibility. Maybe they are confused themselves. Maybe they do not care enough to explain. Whatever the reason, you cannot build your healing around their cooperation. That gives them too much power. Your healing must become independent. It must continue whether they apologize or not, whether they understand or not, whether they regret it or not, whether they miss you or not, whether they come back or not. This is the moment your life begins returning to you. You stop waiting for their final words. You decide your own. You say, "This hurt me, but it will not define me." You say, "I loved them, but I will not abandon myself to keep loving them." You say, "I wish things had been different, but I will not fight reality forever." You say, "I forgive what I can, I accept what I cannot change, and I move forward without needing permission." That is emotional adulthood. And forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. You can forgive a person and still keep the door closed. Forgiveness is about releasing the poison from your own system. Reconciliation requires trust, and trust requires evidence. Do not confuse the two. If someone apologizes after repeatedly hurting you, you are allowed to accept the apology without restoring the same level of access. You are allowed to say, "I do not hate you, but I do not trust you." You are allowed to wish someone well from a distance. You are allowed to understand their reasons and still reject their behavior. Compassion does not require self-betrayal. This is where many kind people get trapped. They understand everyone. They explain everyone's behavior. They had a difficult childhood. They were going through stress. They were afraid. They did not know how to communicate. They have trust issues. All of that may be true, but understanding why someone hurts you does not mean you must continue being available to be hurt. A reason is not the same as an excuse. You can have empathy and boundaries at the same time. In fact, that is often healthier than anger. Anger keeps you emotionally tied. You think about what they did. You replay the betrayal. You imagine proving them wrong. You wait for karma. You hope they suffer. That is not detachment. That is continued attachment through resentment. Detachment is quieter. It says, "I am no longer responsible for what happens to them." You stop watching. You stop checking whether life punished them. You stop comparing their future to yours. You stop needing them to regret losing you. Their consequences are not your business. Your healing is. This shift feels almost unfair at first. Part of you wants them to see what they did. You want them to understand the damage. But the universe is not always organized around visible justice. Some people will hurt you and continue smiling. Some people will never apologize. Some will rewrite the story to make themselves innocent. Some will tell others a version where you are the problem. You have to become strong enough to live without correcting every false story. Not everyone needs to know the truth. You need to know the truth. The people who truly know you will understand your character over time. And the people committed to misunderstanding you were never going to be convinced by another explanation. Let them think what they think. That is detachment too. You do not need to control your image in every mind. You do not need to be the hero in everyone's version. You do not need universal approval before you move forward. Sometimes closure is simply saying, "I am done carrying a conversation that only exists in my head." Then you turn toward your life. Not because the past no longer matters, but because the future matters more. Chapter 5. Stop romanticizing what hurt you. Memory is dangerous when loneliness enters the room. Suddenly, the same person who caused anxiety begins to look unforgettable. The same relationship that exhausted you begins to look beautiful. The same situations that made you cry begin to feel like evidence of deep love. You remember the good days, the laughter, the chemistry, the late conversations, the moments when everything felt easy. And because those memories are real, the mind begins rewriting the entire relationship around them. This is one of the biggest reasons people return to what hurt them. They remember highlights and forget patterns. They remember potential and forget reality. They remember words and forget behavior. They remember how strongly they felt and forget how often they felt unsafe. Detachment requires accurate memory, not negative memory. Accurate memory. You do not have to turn someone into a villain to leave them behind. You simply have to remember the whole story. Yes, there were beautiful moments, and there were also moments when you felt ignored. Yes, you cared deeply, and you also spent nights overthinking. Yes, there was chemistry, and there was inconsistency. Yes, they sometimes made you feel special, and other times you felt like an inconvenience. Both things can be true. The mistake is believing the good moments cancel the bad pattern. They do not. A few beautiful days do not make chronic disrespect healthy. Strong attraction does not make emotional instability safe. Shared history does not create future compatibility. Time invested does not mean more time should be invested. You have to stop letting nostalgia make decisions for you. Nostalgia is selective. It edits. It softens. It removes context. It plays the best scenes and hides the reason the story ended. That is why when you feel tempted to return, do not ask, "Do I miss them?" Of course you might. Ask, "Do I miss the reality, or do I miss the best moments?" Ask, "If nothing changed, would I want the exact same relationship again?" Ask, "Am I remembering who they were consistently, or who I hoped they would become?" These questions protect you from emotional revision. You must understand something important. Potential is one of the most addictive things in relationships. You see who someone could be. You see their good side. You see the moments when they are kind, loving, present, thoughtful, and you build a future around that version. You tell yourself, if they healed, if they communicated better, if they stopped running, if they became more mature, if they finally understood. But you are not in a relationship with potential. You are in a relationship with behavior. And if you keep loving potential more than reality, you will keep sacrificing the present for a future that never arrives. This is not cynical, it is responsible. People can change, but you should not build your life around the assumption that they will. Change is proven through time, consistency and effort. Not promises, not tears, not dramatic declarations after you leave, not one good week. Real change has structure. It looks different for months, not minutes. And even if someone changes, you are not always obligated to return. Their growth does not create a debt in you. You can be happy they changed and still decide that the chapter is closed. That is allowed. You are allowed to protect the version of yourself that had to heal from them. This is especially important when someone returns after a long absence. They may sound different, they may apologize, they may say they have changed, and maybe they have, but do not let emotion erase evidence. Ask yourself what is actually different. Not what they say is different. What is different in behavior? What is different in accountability? What is different in communication? What is different in consistency? What is different in how they handle conflict? What is different in how you feel around them? Because sometimes people do not return because they transformed. They return because the alternative did not work. They return because they miss your attention. They return because they are lonely. They return because they want access to the comfort you provided. You have to be wise enough not to confuse return with realization. Someone coming back does not automatically mean they finally value you. Sometimes it only means they noticed your absence. And noticing absence is not the same as respecting presence. This is why your standards must remain awake, even when your emotions wake up. You can listen without reopening the door. You can hear an apology without making a promise. You can take time. You can observe. You can choose not to repeat history. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is to stop betraying your own memory. You remember how hard it was to detach. You remember the mornings when you felt empty. You remember the nights when you wanted to message them and did not. You remember rebuilding your confidence. You remember becoming yourself again. Do not throw away that progress because one familiar voice returns. Familiarity can feel like safety even when it is not. Your brain likes what it knows. That is why unhealthy patterns can feel strangely comfortable. The unknown feels scary, the old pain feels predictable. So you return, not because it is good, because it is familiar. You have to learn to tolerate the unfamiliar long enough for something healthier to become your new normal. At first, calm may feel boring, consistency may feel less exciting than unpredictability. A stable person may not create the same emotional highs and lows. That is not because something is missing. It may be because your nervous system is finally not being thrown around. You are learning a new definition of connection, one that does not require anxiety to feel intense, one that does not require fear to feel meaningful, one that does not require constant uncertainty to feel alive. And you begin to understand that mental calm is not boring. It is expensive. You paid for it with difficult decisions. Do not give it away cheaply. If you ever feel tempted to return to what hurt you, remember the whole story. Not just the beautiful parts, not just the beginning, not just the promises. Remember the cost, then decide. Chapter 6. Let them lose access to you. One of the most important lessons in detachment is understanding that everyone should not have unlimited access to you. Your time is access. Your attention is access. Your emotional energy is access. Your availability is access. Your vulnerability is access. Your forgiveness is access. Your presence is access. And when you give all of that without standards, people can begin treating something valuable as if it is ordinary. This is not always malicious. Human beings adapt. We become used to what is consistently available. When you answer every call, respond immediately, solve every problem, forgive every mistake, and show up no matter how poorly you are treated, people can begin assuming your presence has no conditions. They stop appreciating it because they stop imagining life without it. This is why detachment often requires reducing access, not as punishment, as alignment. If someone cannot respect your time, they should have less of it. If someone abuses your kindness, they should receive less of your emotional labor. If someone repeatedly violates your trust, they should not have the same level of intimacy. If someone only contacts you when they need something, you do not have to remain permanently available. That is not revenge. That is a boundary. And boundaries are one of the purest forms of self-respect. A boundary says, I am responsible for what I allow around me. It does not say, you must change. It says, if this continues, I will change my participation. That is powerful because it removes the struggle to control other people. You stop trying to make them behave correctly. You start deciding what you will do when they do not. This reduces enormous emotional stress. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to make people understand. You no longer need to prove that your boundary is reasonable. They can disagree. The boundary still stands. This is where many people become uncomfortable. They want everyone to approve of their boundaries. But if your boundary only exists when other people like it, it is not a boundary, it is a request, and requests can be ignored. Real boundaries often disappoint people. They disappoint those who benefited from your lack of them. When you stop answering immediately, someone may call you distant. When you stop lending money, someone may call you selfish. When you stop listening to endless drama, someone may say you changed. When you stop allowing disrespect, someone may accuse you of being difficult. Do not be surprised. People often describe your growth according to how it affects their convenience. That does not make the growth wrong. You have to learn to tolerate being misunderstood. This is essential. You cannot live a self-respecting life while being addicted to everyone's approval. Sometimes people will be unhappy with your decisions. That is part of adulthood. You are not responsible for managing every emotional reaction to your boundaries. You are responsible for being clear, fair, and consistent. Then let people choose whether they can respect the relationship under those conditions. If they cannot, distance may be necessary. And distance is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like fewer conversations, less personal information, less immediate availability, less emotional investment. You do not need to announce, "I am detaching from you." You simply stop giving full access where full respect does not exist. This protects you from another common mistake, overgiving. Overgiving feels generous, but often it hides fear. You give too much because you are afraid that if you stop, people will leave. You become the fixer, the helper, the listener, the rescuer, the one who always understands, the one who always forgives. And then you become exhausted because the relationship depends on what you provide. But here is the question. If someone leaves when you stop overgiving, were they attached to you or to the benefits of having you? That question can hurt, but it can also free you. Your worth is not measured by how useful you are to people. You deserve connection where you can exist without constantly performing, where you can have needs, where you can say no, where you can be tired, where you can ask for support, where your value is not reduced because you are not currently providing something. That kind of connection becomes possible only when you stop trying to buy belonging with effort. Let people lose access to the version of you that had no limits. Let them lose access to the version who answered every call while exhausted. Let them lose access to the version who tolerated disrespect to avoid conflict. Let them lose access to the version who was terrified of being abandoned. That version helped you survive certain chapters, but you do not have to remain that person forever. You can become someone who is kind without being easy to use, generous without being self-destructive, loving without being desperate, forgiving without becoming available for repeated harm, open-hearted without being unprotected. This balance is maturity. And here is something else you need to understand. When you reduce access, some people may suddenly become more interested. They may message more. They may become warmer. They may try to reconnect. Do not immediately interpret increased attention as changed character. Sometimes scarcity creates interest. That does not mean the relationship became healthy. Watch what happens when access returns. Do they remain respectful? Do they remain consistent? Do they take responsibility? Or do they return to the old behavior as soon as they feel secure again? This is why detachment cannot be a temporary performance. If you withdraw only to make someone chase, then when they chase, the old cycle returns. Your standard must survive their attention. Your boundary must survive their apology. Your self-respect must survive your loneliness. Otherwise, nothing actually changes. The power is not in making them feel your absence. The power is in becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves to avoid someone else's absence. That is the difference. You do not leave to create regret. You leave to create alignment. And if losing access to you is what finally teaches someone your value, that lesson belongs to them. You do not have to return to become the reward. Chapter 7. Learn to be alone without feeling empty. Many people remain in unhealthy relationships for one reason they rarely admit. They are afraid of being alone. They say they love the person. Maybe they do, but underneath the love is fear. Fear of empty weekends, fear of silence, fear of eating alone, fear of sleeping without a message, fear of not having someone to tell everything to, fear of watching life move forward while they feel left behind. So they stay. They tolerate things they would never advise a friend to tolerate. They lower standards. They accept inconsistency. They confuse company with connection. Because to them, any relationship feels safer than no relationship. But if you cannot be alone, you will always be vulnerable to people who offer you attention. Attention will feel like rescue, and when attention feels like rescue, you ignore warning signs. You become grateful for crumbs because you are starving emotionally. This is why learning to be alone is not just a lifestyle skill, it is protection. The person who can be alone has negotiating power in relationships. They can walk away from disrespect because solitude does not terrify them. They can say no because they are not desperate to keep anyone. They can wait for healthier connection because emptiness does not force them into the wrong one. They can choose instead of cling. That changes everything. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. Loneliness is the feeling of disconnection. You can feel lonely in a room full of people. You can feel lonely in a relationship. You can sleep beside someone and still feel emotionally abandoned. Being alone is simply the absence of company. And once you learn how to build a relationship with yourself, being alone can become deeply peaceful, but it takes practice. At first, you will want to fill every empty moment. You will reach for your phone, you will scroll, you will check messages, you will search for stimulation, because silence feels too close to your thoughts. Do not escape immediately. Sit there, take a walk without calling anyone. Eat a meal without watching something. Spend an evening without searching for distraction. Let your mind come down from constant stimulation. At first it may feel uncomfortable, then something changes. You start hearing yourself. You notice what you actually enjoy. You notice what exhausts you. You notice how many of your decisions were shaped by other people's opinions. You notice what your body has been asking for. You notice what your future needs. Solitude gives you information that noise hides. It teaches you who you are when nobody is reacting to you. This matters because many people construct an identity around being seen. They dress for reactions, post for reactions, speak for reactions, achieve for reactions. Even their sadness becomes shaped by whether someone notices it. But when you spend time alone, the audience disappears. Then the real questions arrive. What do I want when nobody is watching? What kind of life actually feels meaningful to me? What am I chasing because I want it? And what am I chasing because I want admiration? Who am I when I am not trying to be chosen? These questions rebuild identity. And as identity becomes stronger, attachment becomes healthier. You stop needing one person to be your entire world. You build a life with multiple sources of meaning. Work, learning, health, friendship, family, creativity, spirituality, nature, service, skill, rest, purpose. Now, if one relationship ends, your whole identity does not collapse. You are hurt, but not erased. You grieve, but you still have structure. This is one of the best ways to make future relationships healthier. Do not enter them empty and expect another person to fill every space. That creates pressure. It also creates dependency. Bring a life with you. Bring interests. Bring goals. Bring friendships. Bring a sense of self. Then the relationship becomes part of your life, not the entire reason you have one. This is especially important after a painful ending. You may feel tempted to find someone new immediately. You want relief. You want evidence that you are still desirable. You want to replace the silence. But if you use a new person to avoid feeling the old pain, you carry the old pain into the new relationship. Take time, not because you need to become perfectly healed before loving again. No one is perfectly healed. Take time because you need to understand what happened. What did you tolerate? What did you ignore? Where did you abandon yourself? What did the relationship teach you about your needs? What will you do differently next time? This reflection turns pain into wisdom. Without reflection, pain often becomes repetition. You choose a different face but recreate the same dynamic, the same chasing, the same overgiving, the same fear, the same silence, the same collapse. Solitude breaks that cycle. It gives you enough space to become conscious, and slowly you begin enjoying your own company. Not because you stopped wanting people, but because people are no longer medicine for an empty identity. This is a beautiful shift. You can want love without needing it to survive. You can enjoy connection without being afraid of losing yourself inside it. You can appreciate attention without becoming addicted to it. You can miss someone without returning to what hurt you. You can be alone and still feel whole. That is power. The goal is not permanent isolation. The goal is to become someone who does not trade dignity for company, someone who would rather sit alone at a quiet table than sit in a crowded room where they constantly feel unseen. When you reach that point, your standards change naturally. You are no longer impressed by anyone simply because they want you. You ask whether they are good for you. You are no longer terrified when someone leaves. You know you can survive the silence. You have already met yourself there, and that makes you much harder to manipulate, because the threat of losing someone loses its power when you know that losing yourself would be worse. Chapter 8. Stop taking everything personally. Detachment becomes much easier when you understand that not everything people do is about you. Someone becomes distant. You immediately ask, "What did I do?" Someone is cold. You think, "They must not like me." Someone does not reply. You assume, "I am not important." Someone chooses someone else. You think, "I was not enough." This habit creates unnecessary pain because you interpret other people's behavior as a direct measurement of your worth. But people act from their own fears, wounds, habits, priorities, limitations, desires, and level of maturity. Sometimes their behavior affects you without being about you. Someone may be emotionally unavailable because closeness scares them. Someone may avoid commitment because they are not ready. Someone may lie because dishonesty is how they cope. Someone may become distant because their life is changing. Someone may choose another path because it fits them better. None of this means you should accept disrespect. Understanding behavior is not the same as tolerating it. The point is simply this: do not automatically turn every rejection into a verdict on your value. Rejection means something did not align. It does not mean you are worthless. This is one of the hardest lessons because the ego wants everything to be personal. The ego says, "If they left, I lost. If they chose someone else, that person is better. If they ignored me, I am less important." But human connection is not a ranking system. People choose based on compatibility, timing, emotional capacity, personal preference, circumstance, and sometimes bad judgment. You cannot reduce all of that to, "I was not good enough." That conclusion is too simple and often false. Imagine two people who are both good, intelligent, attractive, kind, and capable. They may still be wrong for each other, not because one lacks value, because value and compatibility are different things. This understanding can release enormous pressure. You do not have to become universally desirable. You do not have to make everyone understand you. You do not have to win back everyone who rejects you. You do not have to compete with the person they chose. You can simply accept mismatch. And acceptance is one of the deepest forms of detachment. Acceptance says, "I do not need reality to be different before I move forward." That is a powerful sentence. Most emotional suffering comes from fighting what already happened. They left, but you keep mentally arguing with the departure. They chose someone else, but you keep trying to prove they made a mistake. They do not value the connection, but you keep trying to increase your value in their eyes. The event happened once. The mind repeats it 1,000 times. This is where detachment interrupts the loop. You say, "I may not like this, but I accept that this is what happened." Acceptance is not approval. It is not saying the behavior was right. It is saying you will no longer waste your life demanding that the past become different. You free yourself from impossible negotiations. You stop asking reality to apologize. You turn toward what can still be changed: your habits, your standards, your attention, your environment, your future, your choices. That is where your power lives. Another reason you must stop taking everything personally is because it makes you easy to control. If someone's coldness instantly creates panic in you, they control your emotional state. If their approval creates confidence and their criticism destroys it, they control your self-image. If you need everyone to like you, anyone can manipulate you by threatening withdrawal. You have to build a stronger center. Someone can misunderstand you without you collapsing. Someone can dislike you without you needing to change. Someone can leave without you needing to chase. Someone can choose differently without you needing to prove they were wrong. This does not mean you ignore feedback. Sometimes rejection contains useful information. Maybe you behaved poorly. Maybe you were unavailable. Maybe you were selfish. Maybe you communicated badly. You should be mature enough to examine your role. Detachment is not denial. You can ask, "What can I learn from this?" without asking, "What is wrong with me?" That distinction matters. Learning leads to growth. Self-attack leads to shame. Shame often creates desperation. Desperation creates chasing, and chasing brings you back to the same cycle. So be accurate. Take responsibility where it belongs. Leave responsibility where it does not. If you made a mistake, correct it. If they made a choice, respect it. If the relationship ended, learn from it. But do not convert every ending into evidence that you are unlovable. That is not wisdom. That is wounded interpretation. You also have to stop taking social media personally. This deserves attention because modern attachment is constantly fed by digital signals. Someone views your story but does not reply. Someone follows someone new. Someone posts a happy photo after leaving you. Someone changes their profile picture. Someone appears to move on quickly. Your mind turns these fragments into stories. They are happier without me. They never cared. They found someone better. They want me to see this. Maybe, maybe not. The truth is, you usually do not know. And every minute spent decoding online behavior is a minute spent giving someone remote control over your mind. Protect your attention. Mute if necessary. Unfollow if necessary. Block if necessary. Not because you are weak, because healing requires reducing unnecessary stimulation. You do not have to keep looking at the wound to prove you are strong. Sometimes strength is simply removing the trigger. The goal is to become less reactive, not numb, not indifferent, grounded, a person who can feel disappointment without turning it into self-hatred, a person who can feel rejection without begging, a person who can be misunderstood without writing 10 paragraphs, a person who can lose someone without losing themselves. That is detachment. And once you stop taking everything personally, the world becomes lighter. People are allowed to be who they are. You are allowed to be who you are. Not every connection has to work. Not every story has to continue. Not every departure has to become a wound. Sometimes it is simply direction. Chapter 9. Become someone you do not have to escape from. Detachment is often described as letting go of people, but the deeper work is learning to stop abandoning yourself. Because if you walk away from one unhealthy person without changing your relationship with yourself, you may eventually repeat the same pattern with someone new. The faces change, the dynamic stays, you chase, you overgive, you ignore your instincts, you stay too long, you become exhausted. You leave, then you promise yourself never again. But without deeper change, never again becomes not yet. This is why you have to become someone you do not have to escape from, someone whose own company feels safe, someone who keeps promises to themselves, someone who respects their own time, someone who does not constantly betray their values for temporary comfort. Self-trust is the foundation of healthy detachment. If you do not trust yourself to leave when necessary, every relationship feels dangerous. Part of you knows that if someone disrespects you, you may still stay. If they lie, you may still excuse it. If they withdraw, you may chase. If they break a boundary, you may negotiate. That creates anxiety because your nervous system knows you are not protecting yourself. You keep looking to the other person for safety when the missing safety is internal. You need to know, if something becomes unhealthy, I will respond. That belief changes everything. It allows you to love more calmly. You do not need to control the other person because you trust your own decisions. You do not need constant reassurance because you know that if reality changes, you will face it. You do not need to force promises because you observe behavior. Self-trust creates emotional stability. But self-trust is built through small actions. You say you will stop checking their profile, and you stop. You say you will sleep at a reasonable time, and you do. You say you will return to the gym, and you go. You say you will finish your work, and you finish it. You say you will not answer disrespect immediately, and you pause. Every kept promise sends a message to your mind. I can rely on myself. This is powerful because heartbreak often damages identity. You begin questioning your judgment. How did I not see this? Why did I stay so long? How did I become this person? Do not use awareness as a weapon against yourself. Use it as information. You stayed because something in you was afraid. Understand the fear. Maybe you feared loneliness. Maybe you feared failure. Maybe you feared starting over. Maybe you believed love required suffering. Maybe you believed leaving made you selfish. Find the belief, then challenge it. This is how patterns break, not through hatred, through consciousness. You also have to rebuild a life you respect. Detachment is much harder when your life is empty. If your entire day revolves around one person, their absence becomes enormous. But when your life has structure, healing has somewhere to go. Wake up with a plan. Move your body. Work on something difficult. Read. Learn. Call people who actually care about you. Spend time outdoors. Clean your environment. Improve your finances. Develop a skill. Create something. Rest properly. None of these activities magically erase emotional pain. That is not the point. The point is to stop building your entire identity around pain. You are more than the person who was left, more than the person who was betrayed, more than the person who was rejected. You still have responsibilities, abilities, ideas, years ahead, parts of yourself you have not met yet. Pain tries to shrink your world. Rebuilding expands it again. And one of the most important parts of rebuilding is changing how you speak to yourself. After rejection, the internal voice can become cruel. You were not enough. No one will love you. You ruined everything. They are happier without you. You will never find this again. These thoughts feel convincing because pain makes fear sound like truth. Do not believe every thought just because it appears in your mind. A thought is not evidence. Challenge it. They left, so I was not enough. No, they left. That is the fact. The conclusion is interpretation. I will never find connection again. You do not know that. That was my only chance. You do not know that either. My life is ruined. Your life is hurting. That is different. Use accurate language. Accuracy protects you from emotional exaggeration, and emotional exaggeration is dangerous because it makes you desperate. If you believe this person was your only chance at love, of course you will chase. If you believe being alone means failure, of course you will tolerate anything. If you believe rejection proves you are worthless, of course you will try to win them back. Change the belief and behavior becomes easier. You are not trying to become emotionless. You are trying to become stable enough that emotion does not make every decision. You can feel and still choose wisely. That is the goal. And as you rebuild, something unexpected happens. You stop wanting some of the things you once begged for. The old relationship starts looking smaller from your new perspective. The attention you wanted so badly no longer feels valuable. The person you thought you could not live without becomes someone you are grateful you stopped chasing. Not because they became worse, because you became clearer. Growth changes taste. What once felt exciting may now feel exhausting. What once felt romantic may now look unstable. What once felt like loyalty may now look like self-abandonment. This is why you should never make permanent decisions from temporary loneliness. Give yourself time to become someone new. Do not rush back to what hurt you because you have not yet met the version of yourself that exists on the other side of healing. That version may have different standards, different goals, different confidence, different relationships, different priorities. You owe yourself the chance to meet them, and to do that, you have to keep walking. Chapter 10. Walk away without looking back. There is a final stage of detachment that feels different from everything before it. It is not anger, it is not sadness, it is not even forgiveness. It is indifference to the outcome. You no longer need them to come back. You no longer need them to regret it. You no longer need an apology. You no longer rehearse what you would say if you met again. You no longer imagine proving how well you are doing. You simply stop organizing your life around the story. That is when you know you have truly moved forward. People often misunderstand walking away without looking back. They think it means erasing memory, pretending you never cared, deleting every emotion, becoming cold. That is not what it means. You can look back mentally and still not go back emotionally. You can remember without returning. You can honor what was good without reopening what was harmful. You can accept that someone mattered without allowing them to keep shaping your future. Walking away without looking back means the past no longer has decision-making power. You may still remember the day everything changed. You may still feel something when a song plays. You may still think of them occasionally. That is human. Healing does not require amnesia. It requires freedom. And freedom looks like this. A memory appears, and you do not spiral. You see their name, and your entire body does not react. You hear they are doing well, and you do not compare. You hear they are struggling, and you do not feel responsible for rescuing them. You understand that their life is now their life. Yours is yours. This separation is healthy, especially if you spent a long time emotionally fused with someone, when their mood controlled your mood, when their attention controlled your confidence, when their distance controlled your anxiety, when their choices felt like a statement about you. Detachment breaks that fusion. You stop carrying emotional responsibilities that were never yours. You let people own their choices. If they leave, they own that choice. If they lie, they own that choice. If they fail to value you, they own that choice. And you own yours. Whether you stay, whether you leave, whether you return, whether you forgive, whether you reopen the door, whether you build a different life. This is where power returns. Not the power to control them, the power to govern yourself. And that is the only power you ever truly had. You could never force someone to love you. You could never force someone to communicate honestly. You could never force someone to respect your heart. You could only choose how long you remained where those things were missing. That realization can feel painful because it removes fantasy, but it also removes helplessness. You are not trapped waiting for someone to change. You can change your position. You can step back. You can leave. You can build elsewhere. You can start again. And starting again is not failure. Sometimes starting again is evidence that you finally stopped settling. Do not be ashamed that a chapter ended. Everything that ends is not a mistake. Some relationships teach you what love should not cost. Some friendships teach you what loyalty should not look like. Some losses teach you where you were abandoning yourself. Some endings return you to your own life. You do not have to hate the chapter to close it. You can say, "This mattered, this changed me, this hurt me, this taught me, and now it is over." There is dignity in that. There is also discipline, because moving forward is not one decision, it is hundreds of small decisions. The decision not to check, the decision not to message, the decision not to ask mutual friends, the decision not to revisit old photos every night, the decision not to interpret every coincidence as a sign, the decision not to use loneliness as evidence that you made the wrong choice, the decision to keep building a life even on days when motivation disappears. These decisions accumulate. At first, each one feels heavy. Then they become easier. Eventually, The new life becomes normal, and one day you wake up and realize you did not think about them yesterday. Then a week passes, then you remember, but the memory no longer pulls you backward. This is how detachment often happens, quietly, without a dramatic moment. You simply become less emotionally available to the past. You are too busy living. That is the final victory, not making them regret losing you, not becoming so successful that they come back, not finding someone better just to prove a point. The victory is no longer needing a victory over them. You no longer live in competition with the past. You are not trying to win the breakup. You are not trying to prove who moved on first. You are simply creating a life that feels honest. And if they eventually realize what they lost, that is their realization. If they never realize it, your life still moves forward. This is what it means to let them lose you. You do not force them to understand your value. You stop offering your value where it is repeatedly ignored. You do not keep demonstrating how loyal you can be. You become loyal to yourself. You do not keep explaining why you deserve respect. You live in a way that requires it. You do not threaten to leave. You become willing to leave when staying demands too much self-betrayal. There is a difference between giving up too quickly and staying too long. Wisdom is knowing which one you are doing. Do not use detachment as an excuse to run from every difficult conversation. Healthy relationships require courage. They require patience. They require repair. But repair requires two people. If you are the only one carrying it, that is not repair. That is maintenance. And eventually, maintenance becomes exhaustion. You deserve relationships where effort is not a solo job, where honesty is not punished, where care is not something you have to beg for, where your presence is not appreciated only after you disappear. But before you can receive that kind of relationship, you have to stop making room for the opposite. This is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot keep holding on to what drains you and expect life to hand you something healthier. Your hands are full. Sometimes letting go is not loss. It is preparation. You are making room for better friendships, better love, better habits, better focus, better sleep, better decisions, a better relationship with yourself. You may not see what is coming yet. That is okay. You do not need certainty to release what is clearly harming you. You only need enough courage to stop calling pain loyalty, enough clarity to stop calling inconsistency love, enough self-respect to stop chasing people who keep showing you they are comfortable losing you. Let them, not angrily, not dramatically, not as punishment. Let them make their choice, and then make yours. Choose the life where you are not constantly proving your worth. Choose the mornings where your first thought belongs to you. Choose the relationships that do not require emotional detective work. Choose the people who make effort without being threatened. Choose the version of yourself who can love deeply without losing direction. Choose the version who can care without clinging. Choose the version who can forgive without reopening every door. Choose the version who can walk away without needing applause. Because the strongest form of detachment is not saying, "I do not care." It is saying, "I care, but I will not destroy myself for this." It is not saying, "You never mattered." It is saying, "You mattered, but my life still matters too." It is not saying, "I hope you regret losing me." It is saying, "I hope we both become who we are meant to become, even if that happens apart." And then you move forward. Not because the past was meaningless, because the future is waiting. You stop standing at a closed door hoping someone will open it from the other side. You turn around. You notice there is an entire road behind you. A road you could not see because you were staring at what ended. And you begin walking. At first, slowly, then with more confidence. Then one day, without needing to look back at all. That is detachment. That is self-respect. That is freedom. And that is how you let them lose you without losing yourself.